Hey everybody, Nick Fandensteel with Timber Tiger Aircraft here. Today we're going to continue on with our series about can I build an airplane? Can you build an airplane? And of course the answer is yes. Today's topic is going to be about organization. One way to really speed up your project is to get organized. And we all know how to organize hardware into bins by type and part number. We already know how to keep all of our paperwork together in a manner that makes it easy to find later on. That's basic stuff that's been beaten to death. If you don't know how to keep screws with screws and bolts with bolts, or if you don't know how to keep your paperwork somewhere where you can find it in the future, you're probably better off watching a video about Adulting 101. So what about your time though? The time is the big thing. After all, time is precious and you want to get this thing into the air. And let's not forget that while busy wastes time and money, productivity gets things done. Those are two very different things. And so we're going to focus on how do you be productive. If you've looked at your blueprints or your manual from us or anybody else, you might already be a little overwhelmed, okay? And that's exactly why we suggest you start a modified scrum board like this. What is a scrum board? I don't know. I've never actually used a scrum board in its pure form, but what I do know is that our modified scrum board is simply a whiteboard with rows for major assemblies such as fuselage, wings, tail surfaces, landing gear, firewall forward, firewall aft systems. So you can see here, this we have organized by customer, okay? And it tells us what our goal is per customer. And that's where you would put your fuselage, wings, tail surfaces, landing gear. You can see we also have a backlog, we have a due, and we have a nearly done. All right, so a backlog is something that can't really be done until one of these tabs has been moved to either nearly done or thrown away. Okay, so ideally you'd be clearing things out of the due section so you can get to your backlog. Now, every now and then you might have what we call an impediment, and let's pretend this tab was an impediment. You could put it over here, right on your thing, like I need to buy a part. Okay, we can't do anything until that part is in place, all right? So the goal is to keep things flowing smoothly, okay? You can come here and get your little sticky notes out and do planning. If your board starts to dry up, you know, if these start to get thrown away, you can come in and do some planning. Half an hour of planning is going to save you hours and hours of work, really. I mean, it tells you what to do, when you're going to do it. If you have multiple people working, you could do like we do here and put their names on the board and then move their tabs to their name. Another thing you can do is you can keep these color coded. These are not color coded right now. Sometimes we do color code them based on what department is doing what. For instance, we have aluminum work is typically green, welding is typically blue. We usually use this for fiberglass and paint, and then we usually use pink for something that anybody can do. So for instance, let's break this down a little bit further. Let's say you're building our STL, okay, and you're building your own fuselage. Most people opt for the quick build kit, obviously, but if you have a fuselage section here, you might have tweaking of bulkheads, all right? Because each of our bulkheads is stamped, and you gotta bend the flange over just a little tiny bit to get it to 90 degrees. So you might have a tab that says tweak bulkheads. Well, you put it on do, toss it out when it's done. On tail surfaces, maybe you have install the hinges to the spar, right? Stuff like that. Now, when you get to the nearly done section, ideally this section would always be empty. The reason this is here is because sometimes we get distracted, All right. Sometimes we need a break, and truthfully, that's part of moving a project along quickly. Sometimes you need a break from one project and a little bit of time to focus on another to come back to whatever it was you were dealing with. So, I mean, it's really simple. This is the best way to get organized as far as getting your using your time efficiently. And speaking of which, when you're using your board, it's also a good idea to have a section for shop tasks, such as sweeping, or maybe your jack broke and you need to go get a new jack. Maybe you need a new saw blade and you need to remember that. Now, if you have multiple people working on your project, they need to know how to use this, or else you need to be in charge of it. The reason is because when things get moving along, people forget to use this thing. All right, and especially when it comes time to do what we call grooming the board. When you groom the board, that means you take all your tabs that are done and throw them away. Why? It cuts the clutter. It allows you to make room for new tabs. And one of the fun things about doing this kind of setup is you can plan this anywhere. Okay, I've got this problem, and my wife will attest to this. I always have to be doing something. It's a sickness of mine. I can't stop thinking about what we do here because it's so exciting. And I can plan things on these tabs anywhere. I could be at home, I could be camping. And the reason that's important to me is because it allows me to get out of my head, right? I can write a few things down. I can go back to enjoying life. I don't have to dwell on anything. I used to keep to-do lists on my phone, and sometimes I still do, but I don't as much anymore because of this. And it's a huge stress relief. It gets rid of all kinds of problems for me, and it allows me to enjoy life when I'm not focused on the project, or in my case, the business, everybody's projects. So that's another nice thing about doing the tabs. And another thing too, kind of unrelated to this, is if you're working at an airport, maybe you should lock your door, because truthfully, I mean, an airport's not a good place to get things done. People want to talk to you, especially if you're working on your weekends. Lock the door, pretend you're not home. Seriously, I hate to say it, but sometimes you just got to get things done, right? Another thing, don't invite your buddies over if all you're going to do is drink and sit around and stare at the airplane. That's something best left for after the work is done. First off, you shouldn't be drinking really while you're building an airplane anyway. That's, again, best saved for afterwards, but nothing's going to get done. Seriously. And if you want help, you better make sure that who's helping you is skilled, or you're willing to spend your time with them to teach them what you're doing. Because when you get somebody in who doesn't quite know what they're doing, they can actually cost you your time, and it can set you back significantly. And we deal with this. Every employer deals with this. It's cheaper to hire the good help for more money than it is to try and get in somebody who has no clue what they're doing for bottom dollar. So things like that, it's good to keep in mind also. Another thing that you can do to help get organized is make sure you're going through your inventory list as soon as you receive your kit. I know our company, and I'm sure other manufacturers also, want you to go through that materials list, that inventory list, to make sure that first off, you know where, you know what the parts are and kind of have an idea of what they look like. But if there's a discrepancy between what you receive and what's on the list, that needs to be reported to us and the whatever manufacturer you're working with immediately. We've had customers even in the past say, hey, I don't have this part. And we look on our inventory list and we say, yeah, you do somewhere. So go ahead and look for it. I'll send you a new one if you truly don't have it, but you got it somewhere. And then they'll call back a couple hours later and say, oh, I found it. I'm sorry about that. So go through the inventory list, really familiarize yourself with things. You can even start organizing parts into, subsections of the project if that helps you. Again, every airplane's different, so but really, please make sure you're going through your inventory lists, because that will help you save so much time. So I hope that helps. Make sure that you're keeping your tabs flowing. Get them off the board as quickly as you can. Get new ones added every time you need to sit down and plan a little bit. I think on our next video we might do staying motivated, because that's a fun one, and you know, when life gets in the way, it can be hard to stay motivated. And I mean, this is aviation and you're doing really cool things out there, and we want to see you guys getting that stuff done. So I think we'll do that one next. Until then, stay safe.